Hi, I'm John Kennedy, and today we're going to be looking at the Nexus 6P smartphone. Okay, so you're wondering why at a time when Apple comes out with the iPhone SE, we're reviewing a large phone. So the Nexus 6P from Google, it's a big phone with a big heart, I have to say. I think a lot of the large phablet phones we've seen up to date really have just been phones with big screens. They don't necessarily have the screen power or the processing or the battery to go with it that makes it really a high-end performer, whereas the 6P from Google, I think, it will match the iPhone 6S head for head, 6S Plus head for head in terms of power and performance. A lot of the devices out there at the moment, from Samsung to HTC, I feel I used to be a fan of companies that put new power and new abilities in terms of their operating systems and embellished Android a bit, but there's a lot to be said for bare bones Android. So this is Android 6 Marshmallow, and it's nice to be able to use a device that allows you to simply cast to a Chromecast as opposed to not being able to use it for those kind of abilities. So Android 6 gets a thumbs up from me. I think it's very refined, uncluttered operating system. But on the Nexus 6P, I think this phone delivers on the promise of large screen phones, whereas, as the point I was making earlier on, I don't think previous phones have in the past. They just didn't have the battery power, didn't have the processor. Now this all kind of comes neatly together. Ironically, at a time when small phones, like I said, the iPhone SE 4-inch screen, are starting to come back into vogue. So we'll never have it all right, but at least we have choice. So the 6P is quite a large screen device, 5.7 inches. The size of the device isn't quite helped by the fact that it has a aluminium body all around it, so it's makes it quite heavy. So you feel it in your hand, you feel it in your pocket. It's heavier than rival devices like the iPhone 6S Plus or the Samsung S6 Plus, Edge Plus even. So from that perspective, it's heavier, but that probably is a good thing as well. You're probably less likely to drop it. That's what my feeling on it. One of the unusual features about it is the fingerprint sensor is at the back. It took me a bit of time to get used to it. I can't say I'm a huge fan of it being at the back, but after a while you do get used to it. I think most people are still used to the fingerprint sensor being on the front of the device. Now Google have been saying that they believe the fingerprint sensor on the back makes it more natural. I think it's probably a compromise for people with small hands, maybe, so that's probably why that's there. I have to say, what wins it for me is the 8-core processor. Everything is just really super fast, even when you're taking pictures using the 12.3 megapixel camera and all the sensors that come with it. It really packs a punch. And the battery itself, you can basically charge, for 10 minutes of charging power, you can get up to 7 hours of battery usage. You can get about 100 hours of talk time, 100 hours of Wi-Fi usage, 100 hours of internet usage. You can watch 10 hours of video, 100 hours of audio. It's actually quite a good device for all the media that you are likely to use on a smartphone today. So from that point of view, the battery is really the winner on this device. As I said, I've been charging this, might charge it one day and I'd be still using it maybe 3 days later. So it's actually, probably revolutionary, especially if you're used to devices that don't really perform very well in battery. This is probably one of the winning features of the device. The other winning feature is the camera. The camera, 12.3 megapixels and 8 megapixels on the front. Again, it's actually very hard, with a display like this, it's hard not to take a very good picture. You really have to be really bad at taking photos, really, not to really be able to maximize how you use the camera. Aided by the 8 octa-core processor, enables quick editing. You can correct your mistakes really quickly. It just takes the lag and the delay out of taking pictures. At about €649 to buy, this is not cheap. That's one of the things going against these big phones. It might be great news for the industry to be able to get nice margins out of it, but for most people, it means they're not likely to buy phones as frequently because they're just so expensive. €649, not a good price, but then it's comparative to, say, the iPhone, which nearly costs €1,000 to buy at the same capacities. Speaking of capacities, this one comes with 32, 64 and 128 gigabit capacities. It's got 3 gigs of RAM built in. But ultimately, the device, as I said, it delivers on the promise of big screen phones. Big screen phones up to now have just had big screens. The processor and all the other stuff that comes with it just haven't been as good, battery particularly. In this device, it all kind of comes together. The only thing going against it is the fingerprint sensor at the back. I am not a fan of that. I think it's counterintuitive, and I think maybe someone needs to go back to the drawing board on it. There you have it, the Nexus 6P.